Hi everyone, Cam here from Yes Auto, and today I'm going to be driving this thing. It is the new Porsche Cayman GT4. I can't tell you how long I've been waiting to say those words. And I say new, it's actually been around for about a year now, and with the relatively recent arrival of the Boxster and Cayman GTS 4 litre, it's no longer the absolute clear pinnacle of the 718 range. Well, on paper at least. So I thought it was a good excuse to go and drive the GT4. I mean, I thought this was a great time to go and do some proper investigative journalism and see whether the GT4 is really worth an extra £11,000 over the equivalent GTS. Yes. Anyway, before I get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. At a glance, you wouldn't actually think the GT4 was so similar to the GTS because the 4 wears an aero kit, and my goodness, does it transform the car from something that's good looking to a car that is absolutely stunning. And not only is it there for show, it actually works. This generates 122 kilograms of downforce when you hit the car's top speed of 188 miles an hour. So the big changes that we've got here, again, this whole front end is very different, much more angular look to it, much more aggressive with a splitter at the bottom adorned with the GT4 logo. Something to point out as well, physical badge, not a sticker. The vents also work. This is a GT product. There's nothing really here for show. It's all in the aid of improving downforce. So these vents that you see at the side actually work, and they extract air from the front bumper around the wheel. And speaking of the wheels, they all come in this same design, although we have the optional matte black paint here, which is around about £500. We've also got black brake calipers as well, although those aren't the carbon ceramics, they are just the standard brakes. Moving a bit further back, we've got, can't really see it from there, but we've got the GT4 logo on one of the air ducts, and wow, look at this really lovely wing. I absolutely love this because it's not gigantic, it doesn't scream and shout. I think it is in perfect proportion with the rest of the car, and you certainly don't get that on the GTS. Another GT4 logo, and then to top it all off, we've got this really quite chunky diffuser, and there are proper tunnels there which generate real downforce. So it looks like a proper GT motorsport product, and I think the overall design of it just makes it feel a bit more special than the GTS. Naturally, there are some mechanical differences between the GT4 and the GTS as well. So we actually get some suspension components from the GT3 at the back and at the front of the car. And adaptive dampers come as standard. So the GT4 sits 10mm lower to the ground compared to the GTS. We've also got different tyres. These are Michelin Pilot Sport 2 Cup tyres, whereas the GTS gets Pirellis, and it's also a little bit wider both at the back and at the front of the car. Now, remarkably, the GT4 is actually heavier than the GTS, and that's partly because of this aero pack. So while the GTS weighs in at 1405 kilograms, the GT4 is properly chunky at 1420. Not much of a difference, really. Now, a bit like the GTS, in the GT4 we can't see the engine. It's underneath here, but I'm afraid we're just going to have to imagine it for now. So the motor is the same as what you get in the GTS. It is a 4-litre naturally aspirated, yes, flat 6 engine, and in the GT4 it develops 414 brake horsepower, which is about 20 more than the GTS. However, the torque figure is exactly the same at 420 Newton meters. Now, the actual motor itself isn't the same 4-litre that you get in the GT3. That's a motorsport derived engine. What we have in here actually comes from the 3-litre turbo engine that you get in the 911. However, what they do is they knock off the turbos and bore it out to 4 litres. And when they tried to put the motorsport engine in here, it simply wouldn't fit. Now, you can get this car in either a 6-speed manual, or you can pay a bit more and get a 7-speed dual clutch, which is the same options that you get in the GTS. And the 0 to 60 times are pretty much identical as well. GTS goes from 0 to 62 in 4.5 seconds, this 4.4. Now, while I'm here, I could also talk about the boot, but we actually go through that in our GTS review, and they're pretty much exactly the same. So if you click the link in the top right-hand corner, you can take a look at the boots. That was a Boxster though, so in the Cayman we have a little bit more room up here, just above the engine cover, and there's also these neat little storage compartments at the back. Don't really know what you put in there, but if you did try and go on a road trip, I'm sure you could make use of them. Now, there are some subtle differences between the GTS and the GT4 on the inside. For instance, the GT4 says GT4 on the seats. And there's also a little GT4 badge down here by the gear shifter. But I think the biggest thing you'll notice are the door handles, or should I say lack of door handles. Because on a GTS you have a regular door handle, but on a GT4 you have a little bit of material that you can pull to open and close the door. Now, that's been done to save weight like you get on a racing car, but I always find that quite funny because we've got a full sat-nav system in here and air conditioning. Really, it's just there to make you feel like a racing driver, and because of that, I love it. What really surprised me when I picked this up from Porsche a few days ago is that most press cars are absolutely loaded with equipment. Sometimes they cost 20, 30 or even £40,000 more than the base car, but this one has barely got any options on it at all. So GT4 prices start at £76,000, which is £11,000 more than a base Cayman GTS. But this one right here is only £79,000, so it's pretty damn close to the basic spec. The key options that we have on here are the bi-xenon headlights, and we've also got a reversing camera. And bar any other small cosmetic changes here and there, it's as close as you'll get to a bog standard GT4. One thing you might notice jumping from a GTS into a GT4 is that there's no driver mode selector on the steering wheel. In fact, there's not a lot on the steering wheel at all. And that's because the GTS comes with the Sport Chrono Pack as standard, which gives you different driving modes to choose from. But the GT4 is the motorsport car, so it's in its harshest driving mode all the time. You can, however, change it up a bit to either make the experience more hardcore or a little bit less. So there's a button to open up the exhaust flaps. You can also do auto blip as well, so when you're changing down gear, it'll blip the revs for a smoother shift. I always think that's a must and have it on all the time. You can also put the adaptive dampers on, which makes the car feel a little bit stiffer and a little bit more alive. And if you're feeling absolutely crazy, you can turn off the ESC and traction control with these buttons down here, but you have to hold them. So if you've got, say, a child in the passenger seat, in fact, there are actually ISOFIX points in this seat here, they're not just going to accidentally turn off the traction control and you'll be in a hedge before you know it. And the other things I just wanted to point out, we've got an infotainment system in here. It's the same as the one on the GTS. So if you want to have a good look at that, go and check out our GTS video. Again, like I said in the GTS, it feels a little bit dated now, but in all fairness, you're probably just going to hook up Apple CarPlay and it does the job absolutely fine. We also have a kind of a mix of hybrid dials and a digital instrument cluster, so you've got the nice big analog rev counter in the center. You've also got an analog speedo to your left, and then you've got a digital screen on the right showing you things like your temperatures and also the sat-nav if you want to. But it's not all about tech, it's all about the driving experience, so let's go and drive it. So we're out in the Cayman GT4, and I just want to take a moment to say what an immense first impression this car makes. It's a bit like driving a glove. You get in it and it's just all so perfectly laid out. The seating position is perfect. I couldn't improve it in any other way. The steering wheel is perfect. And I've got that feeling as though I'm sat in a nice, snug sports car, but can still see out the front really easily. And it's also a much smaller car than something like a 911. So I don't feel like I'm constantly going every time the road gets a bit thin or I've got to let someone drive past me. So while I'm stuck in a bit of traffic, now would be a great time to talk about the ride comfort. So there's nothing really that I can do to make the ride better or worse, although I can activate the adaptive dampers. And in its standard setting, it's really not that bad for what it is. I think if you were coming out of just a regular Cayman and came in here, it would feel a tad on the raw side. But I'm on quite a bumpy road at the moment, and it's absorbing the bumps pretty damn well. If I put the adaptive dampers on, and then it feels like my backside is literally scraping along the tarmac. I can feel every little ridge. It feels almost a bit like the Princess and the Pea, of where I was coming out of a corner earlier, and I could feel the little bits, stone chips in the road. Now let's listen to that noise. Wow! This sounds so good. So, as it uses the same engine as the GTS, it actually sounds very similar. The GTS engine is essentially a detuned version of what you get in here. And also by that I mean that it's all done through the ECU. There's no physical aspect to the engine that is worse than what we have here. And that actually lowers the maximum revs. So this revs all the way up to 8,000, whereas the GTS drops down to 7,800. The downshift with the auto blip on are just insanely good. And in all fairness, it doesn't feel that much faster than a GTS either, which it's not going to really, because the power is pretty much the same. I'd say the attitude that you're just getting with the GT4 though is that it constantly feels like you're in a racing car and talking quite loudly. Even with the flaps closed, which I've not got at the moment because I want to hear that engine, but even with the flaps closed, it's just a bit noisier than a GTS, but that's kind of what you'd expect. So this isn't a problem exclusive to the GT4. You also get it on the GTS and the previous generation GT4 as well. But second gear is just a bit too long. So if you reach the red line in second, you'll be breaking the speed limit. I think it tops out at about 85, which is just ridiculous. 85 miles an hour in second gear. However, on the previous GT4, it could sometimes feel like second gear was a little bit sluggish, as though it was taking its time to build up pace. But now that we've got a slightly broader torque curve on here, even if you're just cruising around in second or third, you always feel like you're on top of the car's power. Okay, so enough about the engine. What else makes the GT4 so special? The steering. It's just the perfect steering setup. Feels a little bit better than what you get on the GTS, and I'm wondering if that's a result of the GT3 components that we've got in the suspension. It is so insanely direct. There's no sponginess from the chassis at all. It just feels flat all the time and really very direct. And also, because you've got such a great steering setup and the engine has so much torque to give throughout the rev range, it just feels like you can enjoy this car without going ridiculous speeds. And I think that's something that's just generally missing from sports cars and supercars today, is they've all become so fast, but the 414 brake horsepower in this is perfect. What the GT4 does so well is show that things are going a little bit crazy in the supercar world at the moment. Because cars are getting so powerful and so heavy that they're kind of becoming really hard to just enjoy on a B road. But this thing is just superb. And I'm going to throw a bit more consumer advice at you, because if you head over to yesauto.com, you might be able to find yourself a deal on new and used Cayman GTS 4 litres or Boxster GTS 4 litres, or the GT4. Now, if you like your cars without a roof, you might also want to consider the Boxster Spyder, because it's pretty much the same car as the Cayman GT4, only without a roof, which means you can listen to that engine more easily. So that's it for the Cayman GT4. I hope you enjoyed the video. I am now going to be driving this all day and all night until I have to hand it back tomorrow morning.